All right, so no till, no dig in your garden. I want to talk about what that means. Conventionally, the way that either gardens or farming went is that you would plow the soil. Either you'd find a way to turn it or till it up. Um, one method was double dig. You dig and then you would, turn it. You go like 12 inches down. It's just incredible back-breaking work to create a garden. And, it's just not necessary. Even on my farm, which is, a little less than an acre and a half, I don't use a tractor. I don't use, like a tiller. Everything is a permanent bed and stays in place, and the soil is never turned, and I'm not using any heavy equipment. And if I can do it on that scale, it certainly can be done on a gardening scale, and there's just really no reason that you would have to do that and bring a heavy equipment out. And the benefits to that is, the most important benefit is just the ease, right? Because every time you have to bring out heavy equipment and all of that, that's very hard. Every time you have to rearrange your beds and relay things out, that's hard. So not doing something just removes a step in the process. The other advantage is seeds only germinate when they're, within an inch to 2 inches of the surface. Every time you turn the soil, you're just going to get more weeds. So you get a lot less weeds after a while when you remove the seed bank from that top inch of soil. Also, when soil is continually turned and tilled, it burns organic matter, right? It's just like a compost pile. You just keep adding air to it, and that organic matter burns up much faster, right? What you want is things happening slowly in the garden and building organic matter over time. And that's what a no-dig, no-till system is going to do for you. Now, this is it, when you're starting out on a new garden, right? There are differences to how you're going to get it to a state where you can have permanent beds. Every place is going to be different based on how quickly you want your garden and the investment of work that you want to put into it. Because if you are planning for next year and you're not going to garden this year, the easiest method is to put down a tarp and leave that on there for a whole year to kill everything, right? Because the problem when you're going into a new spot and creating a garden is going to be all of the perennial grasses and weeds that are established there, right? You're not going to be starting with bare soil, but you need to get to bare soil so that you can lay out your garden, lay out your permanent beds. So to do it long term, that's in a really easy way is by putting out a tarp and leaving it on there. Another method is you can bring in heavy machinery to scrape off that grasses and everything else and the perennial weeds, and you're going to do a bit of hard work to pull out what's ever left, because you can't leave it in there because it's just going to get through everything and become a really big mess. You want to start off clean. So you're going to have to the first year, be really at it to get rid of them, right? So I would recommend, if you don't have as much time, is to maybe start out with a couple of beds that maybe you're going to scrape, right, and get rid of the perennial weeds, and then put some more beds for next year under plastic that you can leave for a year and do it in a lot easier method rather than trying to get so much at one time. Another method is, if you're doing a raised bed, then you can put down cardboard, really thick layer on top of the grass, and try to smother it that way. So that after a year, the cardboard will finally break down. Things might start to go through and you're going to have to go after them. but you should be able to kill most of the stuff after that time. It's going to take a whole year, if not longer. So you want to make it as thick as you can. The other method is just to start out tilling. The problem with that is you're taking perennial weeds and grasses and you're moving them even deeper, and it's not going to kill them. And when they do come back up, now you're going to have to dig even deeper with your hands to get the roots out. Because if you don't remove the roots for grasses and perennial weeds, they're going to continue to come up, right? Just because you break the green part off doesn't matter, right? That's only in the future when you're cultivating, which we'll talk about later. When you're removing the perennial weeds, it's all about the roots, right? The green stuff doesn't really matter, so you can't burn it, right? You can't just rip the green part off. You have to be able to get all the roots out so that you can start clean and give space for your vegetables, right? Because you need to be able to control your garden. Even if you're doing cover crops, you're going to be choosing what goes in there, what's it's going to be easy to manage, that's easy to get out, because if you let it grow wild, it increases disease, it's going to be impossible to harvest, it's just going to be impossible to manage, and you'll be back to a field of grass before you know it. It happens very, very quickly. But once you get it to that state and you can create permanent no-till beds, you're going to be really, really happy. And no-till doesn't mean that you're never going to disturb the soil. You're going to be able to cultivate, right? Very shallow, because you have to be able to plant, you have to be able to work in amendments and all of that. We're just never going to dig it again. We're never going to turn the soil again. And then you're going to have improved soil life, right? You're going to have reduced weeds, just an overall better health, and a much easier garden to work and enjoy.